At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister accidentally uncovered my secret $12 million fortune after snooping on my laptop, and instead of being proud, my entire family turned on me, demanding I share it with her because she deserves more. During our Thanksgiving gathering, my sister stumbled upon a secret, my substantial personal wealth, totaling $12 million. My family immediately insisted I share it with her, convinced she deserved a larger portion. Greetings, everyone. Before we dive into today's narrative, I need to ask for a quick favor. We've observed our channel's growth slowing, and your subscriptions are an incredibly effective way to help us regain momentum. It's effortless, costs nothing, and enables us to keep delivering engaging content. Your backing means everything. Let's collectively ensure this channel thrives. A sincere thank you. Now, let's commence with the story. I'm sharing this account through an anonymous profile for clear reasons, with certain details altered to protect identities. I'm Sarah, 38, female, and I genuinely need to unburden myself. Are you familiar with those family dynamics where one child is perpetually faultless, while another seems completely overlooked? That perfectly describes my early life. Things were quite ordinary until I reached the age of 8. I was an only child, and though my parents weren't overtly affectionate, they were certainly present. My mother would assist with my schoolwork, and my father occasionally took me fishing on Lake St. Clair. We weren't a picture-perfect family, but we managed. Then arrived the pivotal night that reshaped everything. I remember Aunt Kelly appearing at 2 a.m., instructing me to pack a suitcase. Mom was hospitalized. My sister, Rachel, was arriving early, 2 months ahead of schedule. The subsequent weeks blurred into a series of hospital visits and hushed conversations. Rachel was incredibly tiny, resembling one of my baby dolls but surrounded by tubes and wires. I wasn't permitted to touch her or even approach too closely. That was the initial moment I sensed it, an invisible barrier forming between myself and the rest of my relatives. Once Rachel finally came home, our residence transformed into a meticulously sanitized environment. My mother developed an obsession with cleanliness. I mean, industrial-strength disinfectants deployed everywhere, hand sanitizer dispensers in every room, and incessant scrubbing. The sharp aroma of bleach still causes me discomfort even now. But here's the part that truly unsettled me. Whenever I exhibited even the slightest sign of illness, I was promptly dispatched to either Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's residence. I mean, without fail. A single sneeze? Pack your belongings. A slight cough? You're off to visit Grandma. Initially, I found these trips rather pleasant. Grandma Marie would bake cookies, and Aunt Kelly possessed an impressive collection of Nancy Drew books I was diligently working my way through. Yet, children aren't naive. After a while, you begin to grasp the underlying truth. You're not being sent on adventures. You're being treated as a potential danger, as if your very presence could jeopardize your cherished sister. I exhausted every healthy avenue to gain their attention. Truly, I tried everything. Achieving perfect grades? My mother would barely glance up from Rachel's latest doctor's appointment calendar. Winning first prize at the science fair for a renewable energy project? My father merely inquired if I could store the display board in the garage, claiming Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a legitimate concern? The definitive moment arrived when I was 12. For months, I'd been diligently practicing for the school talent show, teaching myself to play bridge over troubled water on the piano. A bit cliché, I know. On the night of the performance, Rachel developed a 99.1 Fahrenheit fever. Guess who performed to an empty audience? Meanwhile, a mere 2 weeks later, the entire family, both sets of grandparents included, attended Rachel's 15-minute flute recital, during which she essentially mangled hot cross buns. Rachel quickly mastered exploiting the system. By the age of 7, she had overcome any genuine health issues, but that didn't prevent her from staging ailments. A headache? She had to stay home from school. Feeling tired? Someone else, guess who, had to complete her chores. Worried about an exam? My mother would literally phone the school to request a deadline extension. I started spending increasing amounts of time in my room, engrossed in books about art history and ancient artifacts. It's ironic how circumstances unfold sometimes. My room became my haven, primarily because Rachel claimed an allergy to my lavender air freshener, making it the one place she wouldn't venture. Do you know what was truly unsettling? When she feigned illness, a part of me felt a twisted sense of gratitude. At the very least, I'd be taken to Grandma Marie, where someone would actually inquire about my day or show interest in my activities. Grandma was the one who ignited my fascination with antique jewelry. She owned an incredible array of costume pieces that she permitted me to arrange and meticulously catalog. I suppose I should have recognized it as a premonition. The most difficult aspect wasn't even the overt partiality. It was their constant reinterpretation of history to justify their behavior. Rachel just requires more attention because she had such a difficult beginning. Sarah has always been so independent. Sarah understands that her sister has unique needs. No, I didn't understand. I was a child who couldn't grasp why possessing a robust immune system made me less deserving of affection. In retrospect, I can discern how those years molded me. The pervasive message that I was somehow unsafe or inconvenient never truly dissipates. But, on the bright side, it certainly taught me self-reliance. When no one reviews your homework or celebrates your achievements, you swiftly learn to be your own greatest advocate. High school. Most individuals either adored it or despised it. For me, it represented my exit strategy. While Rachel was busy cultivating her drama kingdom in middle school, I was diligently laying the groundwork for my personal escape. And let me tell you, nothing motivates you to achieve more than the knowledge that no one else will do it for you. Remember how I mentioned spending countless hours organizing Grandma Marie's jewelry collection? That experience instilled a crucial principle: the necessity of systematic order and meticulous attention to detail. In high school, I approached everything with that identical mindset. My desk at home resembled a page from an organizational magazine. Color-coded notes, perfectly structured study schedules, and every item in its designated spot. Rachel would mock me for it, calling me Raymond. Very original, sis. Yet, the peculiar advantage of being invisible is this: no one is scrutinizing your setbacks or your triumphs. So, you're free to pursue whatever the heck you desire. I joined every club that wouldn't conflict with my part-time shifts at Carson's Diner. A special thank you to Carol, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents often forgot.
Debate team? Check.
National Honor Society president?
Check.
Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper?
Check.
The debate team was where I truly found my voice. There's something immensely satisfying about dismantling an opponent's argument while maintaining absolute composure. It also refined my negotiation skills, a realization that only came much later, but proved incredibly useful. I won states twice. Rachel, however, had significant soccer games, which meant my parents couldn't attend either competition. She was on the C team, mind you, and rarely even played.
Cheers.
Junior year was when events genuinely became intriguing. I sat for the SAT and achieved a flawless score. Not just pretty good, but truly perfect, a 1600. Do you know how few people attain that? Less than 1%. I recall staring at the results screen for almost 20 minutes, convinced it was an error. I rushed home, eager to share the news with my parents. I realize now how naive that was. My mother was in the kitchen, helping Rachel with her English homework. The exchange went something like this, my excited announcement. Mom, look. I got a perfect SAT score. Mom, dismissively. That's nice, honey, but could you keep it down? Rachel's trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. Rachel, smugly. Yeah, some of us actually have to study, Miss Perfect. My mother, soothingly. Rachel, sweetie, don't fret. You're simply a different kind of learner. I still possess the physical copy of those SAT results somewhere. It never earned a spot on the fridge. But Rachel's C+ in English? That literally received prime refrigerator real estate, complete with the "we're so proud of you" magnet. College applications. The entire process was quite revealing. I applied to 15 universities without informing anyone. I composed all my own essays, collected my recommendations, and managed every aspect of the financial aid paperwork independently. My guidance counselor, Mr. Chin, was my real hero. My parents were too preoccupied to assist me with the FAFSA, so I stayed late after school to complete it. Then, the acceptance letters started arriving. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, each accompanied by a scholarship offer. I stored them all in a locked container beneath my bed, fully aware of the consequences if Rachel discovered them. Their attention would instantly shift entirely to her. But if Sarah attends Harvard, I'll be completely alone, or some similar nonsense. The day I received my full-ride offer from Yale, Rachel joined JV cheerleading. Guess which achievement was celebrated with a family feast? Hint, I ate microwave mac and cheese in my room while they dined at Olive Garden. But you know what? That scholarship was my golden ticket. Tuition, housing, board, even a book allowance, all covered. I could finally leave that house where I was perpetually either invisible or an inconvenience. The day my acceptance package arrived, I went to my favorite spot in the local library, a fourth-floor window seat overlooking the park, and wept for an hour. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of pure relief. When I informed my parents at dinner that I was attending U of M, their reaction was less than enthusiastic. My father remarked, "Michigan? But that's so far. What if Rachel needs you?" My mother added, "I hope you're not expecting us to help with expenses. Rachel's cheerleading competitions are incredibly costly." Rachel, then, began to dramatically exclaim, "Oh my God. Finally. Can I have your room? I need space for my TikTok videos." That summer before college, I took on double shifts at Carson's Diner to accumulate savings. Carol, bless her kind heart, always slipped me extra tips and ensured I could bring home leftover pie at the end of my shifts. She also imparted a crucial life skill: how to identify genuine individuals in a world full of pretenders. "Honey," she'd often say, "in diners and in life, the ones making the most noise usually have the least substance." On move-in day at U of Michigan, my parents were absent. Surprise, surprise, Rachel had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, helped me arrange my dorm room, and presented me with an envelope containing $500. "Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this," she explained. "She's immensely proud of you." I later discovered Grandma had painstakingly saved that money from her Social Security checks for months. That initial night in my dorm room, I made a solemn promise to myself. I would construct such an extraordinary life that being overlooked would become unimaginable. Not for retribution, nor to prove anything to my family, but for that 8-year-old girl who was always sent away to Grandma's for simply sneezing. University life passed in a whirlwind of late-night studies, instant ramen, and glorious autonomy. I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan. Not that my parents noticed. They were too preoccupied assisting Rachel with her transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where the narrative takes an unforeseen turn. I secured an entry-level position at Everett and Phillips Auction House in Detroit. I won't use the actual name for understandable reasons, but if you're acquainted with the industry, you likely know who I'm referring to: a truly high-end institution, catering to many old-money clientele, that kind of operation. I began within their estate sales department, which involved meticulously cataloging the possessions of affluent individuals after their passing. Not exactly glamorous, but it covered my bills. The turning point. My initial months were fairly routine, documenting innumerable china sets, categorizing vintage furniture, and similar tasks. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow who had passed away without children, leaving behind what everyone presumed was an extensive collection of costume jewelry, rooms overflowing with the stuff. This is precisely where those hours spent with Grandma Marie proved invaluable. I was sifting through this mountain of jewelry when something unexpectedly caught my eye. It was an Art Deco brooch. Nothing particularly flashy, yet something about it felt distinctly different. Its weight was inconsistent with costume pieces, and the clasping mechanism was far too intricate for a mere replica. I believe I dedicated my entire lunch break that day to researching antique jewelry markers and signatures. I ended up working late, utilizing the company's membership to several antique jewelry databases. The more I investigated, the more convinced I became. This was not costume jewelry. This was the genuine article. The challenge? I was the newcomer. No one would credit me if I claimed we had a potential treasure on our hands. So, I applied what the debate team had taught me. I meticulously constructed my argument. I spent 2 weeks, during lunch breaks and evenings, absorbing every possible detail about Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even dipped into my meager savings to enroll in an online gemology course. Finally, I summoned the courage to approach my boss, Mr. Harrison. I presented the full case, complete with comparative images, historical documentation, and all the necessary corroboration. Our conversation proceeded something like this: my statement. "Sir, I believe we may have discovered something highly significant within the Kingston collection." Harrison, barely glancing up from his phone, responded, "Sarah, we've already cataloged those as costume pieces." My retort: "You're correct, I know, but examine these makers' marks. They perfectly align with Cartier's 1925 signatures." Harrison, finally giving me his full attention, asked, "Where did you acquire all this knowledge?" My answer: I did some research. To make a long story short, that costume brooch fetched $47,000 at auction. It turned out to be part of a limited edition collection commissioned for European royalty in the 1920s. But here's the true revelation. Harrison started to trust me after that. He began entrusting me with other artifacts for authentication. Suddenly, my seemingly trivial hobby of arranging antique jewels gained profound importance. I committed myself to mastering everything about vintage jewelry. I enrolled in every online course I could afford, spent weekends at estate sales meticulously examining items, and even began a dedicated notepad to document various authentication procedures. My apartment resembled a jewelry scholar's wild dream, with walls adorned with printouts of antique hallmarks and certification guidelines. The auction house began seeing tangible results. I was identifying valuable pieces that others had overlooked, cultivating relationships with collectors, and developing a keen understanding of the market. My commission checks steadily grew larger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't merely surviving, I was accumulating substantial savings. The family, however, remained remarkably indifferent. At Sunday dinners, which I foolishly continued to attend, the conversations often went like this. My mother, Sarah's still at that antique shop, isn't she? Me. Auction house, actually, and yes. Just this morning, I authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Rachel interjecting. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall. But I no longer cared. For once in my life, I had discovered something entirely my own, something I excelled at, completely separate from being Rachel's sister. Then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my tenure at the auction business, a monumental estate from an old money family. There was considerable buzz throughout the industry. I was part of the team tasked with cataloging their jewelry collection, and that's when it registered with me, a rather unassuming Art Nouveau piece that everyone else had completely missed. I spent 3 sleepless days investigating it. It turned out to be a component from a renowned French jeweler's private collection, presumed lost during World War II. When it sold at auction for $238,000, Harrison summoned me to his office. I anticipated a promotion. Instead, he uttered words that completely altered my trajectory. Sarah, you're squandering your talent here. You should be managing your own authentication enterprise. Initially, I dismissed the idea.
Me?
Start a business? With what capital? However, the concept took root. I began undertaking modest freelance authentication assignments on the side. Word of my exceptional insight began to spread, and private collectors started contacting me directly. One evening, sitting in my modest apartment, surrounded by the jewelry manuals and authentication instruments I had painstakingly acquired, I experienced an epiphany. This is something I could actually accomplish. I could build something entirely on my own. So, I did what any rational individual would do. I secured a significant loan against my car. I emptied my entire savings account. I leased a small office space in a less than desirable part of town. People thought I was mad. Perhaps I was. I transformed a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, roughly the size of a college dorm. The rent was low because it perpetually smelled of Kung Pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only functioned if you positioned yourself in the corner by the window. But it was mine. The initial struggle. The first few months were certainly interesting, and by that I mean terrifying. I'd wake at 4 a.m. in cold sweats, mentally calculating how many months remained before my savings vanished. Loan repayments felt like a constricting noose. My office furniture consisted of a card table I purchased from Goodwill and a chair I literally found on the curb. Don't worry, it was thoroughly sanitized. However, in the realm of high-end jewelry, reputation and connections are paramount, and my experience at the auction house had afforded me both. I started small, conducting authentication work for local antique dealers. My fees were lower than the larger organizations, but my meticulous attention to detail was quickly gaining recognition. Word spread. 6 months later, a pivotal moment arrived. A dealer I had previously worked with at the auction house inquired about a collection of Victorian-era brooches. The owner sought confirmation before selling. It turned out to be an enormous collection, encompassing pieces from 3 generations of a single family. I worked on it relentlessly for 2 straight weeks, barely sleeping, documenting every discovery. I identified 2 incredibly rare pieces that had been misidentified as later replicas. The owner was so impressed with my thorough analysis that she not only paid my fee but also offered me a 10% commission once the pieces sold. That commission? $86,000, more money than I had earned in the preceding 2 years combined. Suddenly, my phone began ringing constantly. Private collectors had heard about my talent for uncovering overlooked treasures, estate lawyers sought my expertise on inherited jewelry, and even my former auction house started sending me authentication assignments. I'm quite sure Harrison was covertly helping to disseminate the news. Thanks, boss. Scaling up. By year 2, I had employed my first team member, Jenny, a recent gemology graduate who bore a striking resemblance to my younger self. Exceptionally bright, yet easily overlooked due to her quiet nature. She's now my head of authentication and is truly worth her weight in gold. The company expanded far more rapidly than I could have foreseen. We moved to a proper downtown office. Farewell, Kung Pao chicken aroma. I assembled a team of specialists. I'd cultivated a reputation for unearthing misidentified items. You wouldn't believe the number of historically significant jewelry pieces that get mistakenly labeled as costume jewelry in people's attics. Maintaining secrecy for my family, however, success, nevertheless, brought its own set of challenges. The larger we grew, the more difficult it became to conceal it from my family. They still genuinely believed I worked in an antique shop. Rachel would frequently make these sarcastic comments during family dinners. Rachel, sneering. Sarah, I have some old jewelry I was planning to donate to Goodwill. Perhaps your little shop would be interested? Me, having just authenticated a $1.2 million Faberge item that very morning. Sure, I'll take a look. My mother would continue to introduce me to everyone as, this is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something. Meanwhile, I was being quoted in Forbes, thankfully under my company's name, and we had recently established our third office. The oddity of it? Keeping the secret gradually became almost enjoyable, like a private joke I shared with myself. I'd attend Sunday dinner in my ostensibly Target discount outfit, actually Chanel, listening to Rachel recount details of her entry-level marketing job, knowing I had just finalized a deal worth more than her annual income. I even started playing small games with myself, like wearing authentic Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings and observing if anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes flaunting her expensive $200 Michael Kors watch while I was sporting a vintage Patek Philippe that cost more than her car. Managing growth. The true challenge, however, was overseeing our expansion. By year 5, we had established offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time in airplanes than in my own bed. We had built a reputation for discretion. It turns out many affluent individuals prefer their jewels verified without public knowledge. The financial stakes were enormous, necessitating the hiring of a substantial team of financial advisors. Despite this, I maintained a relatively understated lifestyle. I acquired a pleasant, but not ostentatious, house in a desirable neighborhood. I drove a high-end, yet discreet, car. The only areas I truly indulged were my home office, advanced authentication equipment, the most robust security system available, and a custom-built vault that would make Fort Knox envious. The irony? They believed I was being frugal by assisting them. My mother would frequently remark, "It's so kind of Sarah to help out. She must be surviving on nothing but ramen to manage it." Meanwhile, I had just authenticated a collection that earned me a commission surpassing their entire mortgage. You know what's peculiar about success? The more you achieve, the more difficult it becomes to explain to those who have always perceived you as inferior. It's akin to describing color to someone who has only ever known black and white. They simply lack the necessary frame of reference. But by this stage, my company was flourishing. We had cornered the high-end jewelry authentication market in the Midwest, and our reputation was, quite literally, solid gold. Yet, every Sunday, I would travel to my parents' house for dinner, portraying Sarah, the modest antique shop worker. The cognitive dissonance was growing absurd. I'd spend my mornings on conference calls with Dubai collectors, my afternoons verifying million-dollar pieces, and my evenings at my parents' home, dressed in carefully selected normal attire, eating my mom's overcooked pot roast while Rachel dominated the conversation with tales of her latest marketing triumph, usually something as trivial as successfully bringing her boss coffee without spilling it. A defining moment. One Sunday remains exceptionally vivid in my memory. I had just completed a huge transaction, authenticating a missing Cartier piece that had been resting in someone's safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission alone? 7 figures. I drove directly from the meeting to my parents' place, still euphoric from the successful authentication. My mother inquired, "Sarah, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a bit worn." "Oh, trying to save money," I replied, wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater that I had purposefully chosen for its subtle appearance. Rachel responded, Well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry. My father interjected. Rachel, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you. I nearly choked on my pot roast, desperately trying to suppress laughter. The anonymous transfers. Monthly payments to my parents commenced around this period. Aunt Kelly had discreetly informed me they were struggling with Rachel's educational loans and medical expenses. My mother casually mentioned they might be forced to sell the house. I simply couldn't permit that to happen. Despite everything, it was still the home where I grew up. So, I initiated an anonymous monthly transfer of $5,000 to their account. When questioned, I claimed I was contributing $1,000 by living frugally on rice and beans. They assumed the remainder originated from Aunt Kelly or other relatives. Rachel, naturally, took full credit for inspiring family members to offer assistance. Observing Rachel spend my money. While the money was helpful, it also produced unforeseen consequences. My parents began treating me with a peculiar blend of pity and condescending pride, as if I were some noble, self-sacrificing pauper supporting the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's expenditures grew increasingly extravagant. She'd arrive for dinner with new, expensive handbags, asserting they were outlet finds. They weren't. I can identify a genuine Gucci from 20 paces. She started taking lavish vacations and boasting on Instagram about her blessed life. I'm thoroughly convinced she diverted my support money into shopping sprees. Yet, I remained silent. The irony was just too delicious. The MBA drama then unfolded. Then came the collegiate funding drama. Rachel announced her desire to pursue an MBA, another private university, of course, only the best for the golden child. My mother tearfully contacted me, explaining their inability to afford it. I suggested, perhaps Rachel could explore state universities? They offer excellent programs too. My mother, dismissively, oh, darling, you don't comprehend. Your sister must uphold certain standards. Then, changing the subject, but speaking of assistance, might I request an increase in your monthly contribution for a few years? I elevated it to $7,000 per month. My personal accounts were unaffected, but witnessing them commend Rachel for her initiative with her education, while presuming I was subsisting on ramen to help, stung a little. The ultimate irony? I was scheduled to deliver a guest seminar at the very same business school Rachel intended to attend. My family, of course, was oblivious. The dean had personally extended an invitation for me to lecture on luxury goods, authentication, and business expansion. I had to concoct an excuse for not attending Sunday dinner that week. My own accomplishments began to feel like a completely separate existence, as if I were some corporate superhero with a secret identity. By day, I managed a multi-million-dollar authentication enterprise. By night, well, on Sunday evenings, I was merely Sarah, the disappointing daughter who worked in an antique shop. The breaking point: Thanksgiving. The burden of this deception was becoming insufferable. Rachel had made disparaging remarks about my career on numerous occasions. Each time, my mother apologized to her friends for my modest lifestyle. Every time, my father suggested I find a real job. I think I always knew it would conclude dramatically. I just never anticipated it would detonate so spectacularly on Thanksgiving. It commenced 2 weeks prior to the holiday. My mother called, weeping about her back pain. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the prospect of preparing Thanksgiving dinner for 20 guests overwhelmed her. Now, I'd like to assert I offered to help purely out of goodwill, but truthfully, I was simply weary of pretending her dry turkey was palatable. My offer: why don't I handle the food this year? I can have it catered. She replied, oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer. My response: don't concern yourself with the expense. I've been saving up. My mother worried. You're not taking out a loan, are you? I coordinated everything with a high-end catering firm I regularly used for business events. They deliver exceptional quality, the kind of food that makes you question why you ever bothered to cook yourself. It cost more than my parents imagined I earned in 2 months, but never mind. Thanksgiving morning dawned, and I felt quite content. I had my laptop with me because I needed to closely monitor a significant online auction in Hong Kong. A magnificent Art Nouveau necklace was being sold, and I had a client interested in its authentication if they secured the bid. The luncheon arrived precisely on schedule, and everything was impeccably arranged. Rachel, naturally, had to comment. Rachel, querying, store-bought stuffing, really, Sarah? Mom's is so much better. This from the girl who once activated the smoke alarm while preparing toast. My mother was apologizing to everyone for not cooking herself, but you could tell they were thoroughly enjoying the meal. Rachel fell silent after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which, incidentally, cost more per plate than her entire weekly grocery budget. I excused myself from the dinner and deserted to check my laptop. The auction was intensifying, and I needed to be ready in case my client won. I set up in my old bedroom, which my mother had preserved exactly as it was since high school. Rachel's room, in contrast, had undergone 3 redesigns. That's when everything went irrevocably wrong. I had left my authentication program running, with numerous tabs open displaying various accounts and active agreements. Rachel entered without knocking, some habits never change, to borrow my phone charger. She spotted my laptop screen and evidently recognized her opportunity to finally expose her older sister's pathetic existence. Rachel, smirking, let's reveal what Sarah's really been occupied with. Before I could react, she snatched my laptop and marched into the dining room. The grand disclosure. Picture this. 20 people, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, satiated with gourmet turkey and half inebriated on expensive wine they believed was from Trader Joe's. Rachel's declaration. Time to see what important work Sarah's doing on Thanksgiving. She triumphantly flipped the laptop around, clearly intending to humiliate me with whatever minor antique transactions she assumed I was handling. The room descended into complete silence. You could hear the ornate clock I'd gifted my mother for Christmas quietly ticking. She thought it was a reproduction. My screen displayed current account balance, $12,400,000. Pending authentication contract, $485,000. Recent transaction, $1,200,000, Hong Kong auction. Company's quarterly profit report, $4,200,000. Rachel's expressions cycled through 5 distinct emotions in 3 seconds, the final one settling somewhere between utter shock and profound nausea. She actually swayed slightly on her feet. Rachel, whispering, This can't be real. My mother. Rachel, darling, what is it? Rachel, voice cracking. She's rich. Sarah's rich. Chaos erupted. If it were possible, the silence deepened even further. Then, my mother began to giggle, a truly hysterical laugh. She asserted, Don't be absurd. Sarah works at that tiny antique shop. I rose deliberately, smoothing my understated cashmere sweater, which, incidentally, cost more than their monthly mortgage. Me? Yes, actually, Mom, I own one of the country's largest jewelry authentication companies. For years. Those antique shop comments? I authenticate pieces valued in the millions. That little business you never inquired about? It boasts offices in 3 cities. My father choked on his drink. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. My uncle began a terrible coughing fit. Then, my mother's laughter transformed into something else entirely. Her face flushed crimson, then purple. She stood so abruptly that her chair toppled backward. Mom, screaming, You have millions, and you allowed us to struggle? My response, struggle? I send you $7,000 every single month. She retorted, while sitting on millions. Your sister has student loans. So there it was. Instead of congratulations or wow, we're so proud, there was only outrage that I hadn't given them even more money. Rachel then started to cry, surprising, I know, sobbing about how she deserved to know and how I had betrayed the family. My father joined in. My dad, how could you be so utterly selfish? Your parents, we raised you. That was the moment I completely lost control. Years of being ignored, years of dismissal, years of being regarded as a family disappointment, everything spilled forth. My outburst. Raised me? You banished me to Grandma's every time I so much as sneezed. You missed every single achievement, every award, every milestone because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a single penny for my college, but took out loans for her private school. And now you're furious that I built something for myself. The subsequent 5 minutes were pure pandemonium. My mother shrieked about family obligations, my father bellowed about ungrateful children, and Rachel alternated between wailing and demanding to know precisely how much money I possessed. Meanwhile, the elegant catering team attempted to serve dessert, looking exceedingly uncomfortable. I grabbed my laptop, picked up my Hermes bag, which my mother had once praised as a nice replica, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear my mother discussing how to spend my money, something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. As I drove home in my sensible automobile, a limited edition BMW, My phone began to fill with messages. The family group chat exploded. Rachel started posting on Facebook about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The aftermath. The days following Thanksgiving felt like observing a cyclone in slow motion, except the hurricane was my family and the debris represented my sanity. Let's begin with the text messages. Within an hour of my departure from dinner, my phone registered 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. My mother's progression was particularly illuminating. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to discuss this like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 p.m. I've already contacted a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Rachel, on the other hand, had completely embraced social media warfare. She composed an extensive tirade on Facebook about how her millionaire sister had been hoarding wealth while observing her beloved family struggle. The comment section was absolute madness. Distant cousins and former high school classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly formed strong opinions about my moral character. But this specific detail truly got to me. Rachel actually posted, all those years of me trying to help Sarah's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop, and she was secretly wealthy. The perceived betrayal stung so deeply, I almost hurled my phone across the room. The only career advice she ever offered me? She suggested I try selling jewelry on Etsy. If you're unfamiliar with the term, flying monkeys are when toxic family members deploy others to induce guilt. Aunt Susan, whom I saw perhaps once every 3 years, called to inform me that family is everything. Uncle Bob, who I'm fairly certain still believes I'm 12, emailed me a lengthy sermon on the importance of sharing wealth. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how did she even obtain my number? Felt compelled to express her thoughts on family obligation. But the true entertainment commenced when they appeared at my workplace. I arrived on Monday morning to discover my mother, father, and Rachel seated in our reception area. They informed Jenny, my receptionist, that they had an appointment for authenticating services. Rachel clutched her Michael Kors bag as if it possessed genuine value. The ensuing conversation unfolded about, as well as one might anticipate. My mother. We've discussed it as a family. Me. A family discussion without the family member you're discussing? Mom, ignoring me. And we believe it's only fair that you establish trust funds for everyone. Rachel, interjecting. I require at least $2 million to properly initiate my new life. My father added, and your mother and I would like to retire. We're considering a beach house in Florida. Me. Did you perhaps miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly? Rachel, indignantly. That's nothing compared to what you possess. You owe us. You're thinking, I owe you for what exactly? The years of being ignored? The missed graduations? The relentless comparisons? My mother, placating. Don't be dramatic, Sarah. We gave you everything. My response, no. I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done. Right there, in my own office lobby, I retrieved my phone and canceled the monthly transfers to their account. My mother gasped as if I had physically struck her. Rachel began her theatrical crying performance, but swiftly ceased when she realized it wasn't having the desired effect. Then, things grew unpleasant. They refused to depart. I had no choice but to contact security. Watching my 60-year-old mother being escorted out while shouting about ungrateful children was surreal. Jenny inquired if I wished to press charges. I declined. However, I did ensure their names were added to the building's do not admit list. The harassment persisted for weeks. New phone numbers, fabricated email addresses, even attempts to contact me through my company's customer service. I eventually had to issue a formal legal notice, threatening harassment charges. My mother then played her final card. She called Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She's wiser than all of them put together. How did she respond? Good for Sarah. It's about time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms. My mother refused to speak with her for 2 months following that. It has now been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I've relocated to a new home with enhanced security and changed all my contact numbers. As for the company, we're thriving more than ever. It turns out my family drama actually attracted several high-profile clients who appreciated my discretion in handling the situation. Rachel continues to post passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. From what I understand, she's embarking on her own jewelry authentication firm. Best of luck with that. My mother and father finally ceased their attempts to contact me when my lawyer sent them an official letter outlining how harassment charges would impact their lives. They're now informing everyone that they never wanted my money anyway and that they are praying for my salvation. The best part? For the first time in my life, I feel truly liberated. No more Sunday dinners filled with subtle insults. No more downplaying my achievements to spare their feelings. No longer funding the Rachel show. My therapist believes I'm finally establishing healthy boundaries. I say, I'm finally living authentically. So, that is my story, Reddit. Thank you for allowing me to share it. Special thanks to the catering firm who sent me a Christmas letter stating that the Thanksgiving meal was the highlight of their year. Edit. Responses to common questions. Yes, I am still in therapy. No, I do not regret cutting them off. Yes, Grandma Marie is doing wonderfully. She's visiting next month to assist me in cataloging a new collection. One final message to Rachel. I know you're likely reading this. That Cartier bracelet you're flaunting in your most recent Instagram post? Definitely a fake. Just saying. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories unfolding around you.